What is up, tasties and tastettes? Welcome back to another episode of FTWGT Weekly. It's your boy Lenny, joined again as always with my producer extraordinaire, Dante. How are you?
Hey.
He's straight from Bucky's.
Yes, sir.
You rep that brand a lot. We sponsored?
I wish.
No, no. All right, maybe someday. If you want to see us get sponsored by Bucky's, if you could first just drop a like and subscribe on this podcast, we would greatly appreciate that. We are chasing them Bucky sponsorships. You guessed it. You get that one?
No, I didn't.
Look down at yourself.
Oh, fuck.
It wasn't an imaginary shirt that I was referencing. But you know what did make us use our imagination, Dante?
What?
The movie
Oh,
If.
Wow. King of the Segways back at it again.
The movie If, featuring John Krasinski, directed and starring John Krasinski, the little girl from The Walking Dead, Steve Carell, and Ryan Reynolds, amongst other people, I'm sure.
I would say it was starring Ryan Reynolds and the little girl. John Krasinski was more of a supporting character.
Yeah, he was in it though.
Yeah,
a scene stealer, even.
Oh,
not really. Yeah, we saw If, and we saw If, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Wow, I was actually saying that in my head.
Two incredibly corny people,
unfortunately,
running it, baby.
Yeah.
A movie that can you get me updated box office? I believe is disappointing, unfortunately.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was somewhat expensive and it's not really making any cash. I'm going to awkwardly reach back for 2 seconds, everybody. Bailey came barging in the room. You are?
Yeah.
What did you think though? Initial thoughts. Let's give us some initial thoughts on it. What was your expectation level going in? Let's start there. What were you expecting?
I mean, I guess you see Ryan Reynolds and you expect comedy, but I guess I allowed myself to forget this is more of a kid's movie, or I guess a family movie. And so it wasn't necessarily the level of comedy I was expecting, but it was still pretty good. And I think this is a great movie to take your kids to.
I think the one thing that this year has really been missing for me from a movie perspective is I don't think we've gotten like a true like laugh out loud funny movie yet. Like I think we've gotten movies that have made me giggle.
Yeah.
But like I think to your point, you see Ryan Reynolds before this and you're like, there's some optimism or hope that you're going to go into this and it's going to be, that movie, like where it's going to have a lot of, and I think to boot John Krasinski, you're pairing him back up with, not John Krasinski, Steve Carell, who you're pairing back up with John Krasinski, right? Not that there's a ton of overlap between those characters at all. Like they really, to my thoughts, don't have any scenes together in the whole movie.
Office?
Yeah, in this fucking movie, dude.
Yeah.
But I think alongside like I guess a Fall Guys. What else was trying to be funny this year? Lisa Frankenstein, Ghostbusters. I think those are the true like comedy movies that were trying to be funny this year.
The only one that really hit was Fall Guys.
Well, I think that to me, like this is equally as funny as Fall Guys. Like in the sense of like there was nothing in Fall Guys that like I like laughed out loud at,
It definitely got more chuckles out of me though.
Yeah, sure. Like I'm just like what qualifies as funny anymore?
You're just looking for the next Superbad.
Or like Hangover, or like even like The Blackening last year, I feel like like hit pretty hard as far as like having some funny parts to it, like I think that and like not to mention, we're talking about strictly movie theater movies, but I think like a Ricky Stenicki hit pretty well as like a comedy that came out online this year, a streaming comedy. And I just think we're kind of missing like that true comedy in the theaters right now. Like in, coming from two people who have seen almost every single thing, unless you think the Amy Winehouse movie's funny. Think that one's gonna have any laughs?
Ah,
No.
mm-mm,
Um,
mm-mm. No.
yeah, I think we're just truly missing like the funny movies. So I think getting back to my main point here, going into this as far as expectation levels, I think yeah, I think you see Ryan Reynolds and you have some level of optimism because I mentioned it last week before the movie. Detective Pikachu, I think, is also a family movie, similar in terms of some like comedic aspects where it's like this little like he's like working off of an animated like thing next to him.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say this movie wasn't funny. I think it was clever. I think what I said to you leaving kind of remains true that like to me, this movie is very much so. If this was 1996 or 98, which when did Toy Story come out? Was it 96?
96, I think. Yeah.
Maybe 97. Maybe we're splitting the difference here.
Yeah.
Somewhere between the years 1996 to 1998 when Toy Story came out. Um,
Oh wow, we're both off. 95.
fuck. It's closer with the 96. All
Yeah.
right. But either way, like so if we're going back to like that age, right? And like you were a parent bringing a kid to see Toy Story for the first time. You were probably like sitting there and your kid probably loved it and was like glued to the screen. And you're probably sitting there and you're like, this is pretty like this is pretty good. Like it's not hilarious or anything like that, but like the characters are funny. Like, oh, that's Tom Cruise, that's Tim Allen, recognizable people.
Yeah.
Good story. Like it's good for both the kids who are going to it, but it's good enough for the parents who are going to it. And for that matter, I think that this movie is like mission accomplished, right? Like I think it's like Pixar formula where it kind of works for all ages in that regards. But because it's got to span all those demographics, yeah, it definitely doesn't hit for like the two 30-year-old dudes going to see this movie. I will say this though, like did you probably you're not as observant to what's like the people around you as I am. Like I'm very much in tune with
No,
like
I'm not.
the people who are on us. There was a kid that was sitting in the handicap seats all the way to our left,
Okay.
who was sitting like edge of his seat, glued into this movie. Like he was loving it. And for that, I was like, well, this is great. Like he was vibing with all the characters. I think that like you probably love all those imaginary friends. And I did think like I don't know. I didn't have like I grew up an only child, but I didn't have like an imaginary friend growing up. Um,
No.
I just talked to myself a shitload, you know.
No.
So I don't know. Is that an imaginary friend if I'm just talking to nothing? Like I had action figures and stuff.
Yeah. I remember at some point wanting to believe I had an imaginary friend and trying to imagine it, but
You
I
thought it
just
would
don't
make
know
you
if my
cooler if you had one?
maybe I don't know.
Yeah, like I just remember, like yeah, I mean, like, I remember wanting to have one.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
Like, oh, that seems cool.
I had all
Just
these
couldn't
real
tap into my
ones.
psyche that well, you
Yeah,
know?
it's like I had all these real ones. I couldn't. I just wanted to have a fake one too, dude. I wanted to lock one down. Oh,
I had
but
real
yeah,
ones. I was trying to imagine better ones, you know?
I just remember a couple times looking over at that kid towards like the middle to end of the movie, and he just seemed like he was like really enjoying it. And I was like, all right, like that's a feel good movie for me, I think, because like that means it's kind of setting out like it's accomplishing what it set out to accomplish in a lot of ways. And I think, long story short, on like a review of this movie, I do think it accomplishes that. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's a feel good time. I think that it's not a drag. It's definitely not unfunny. I just don't think that like there's anything as an adult, if you're just going into it as an adult without that attachment to the kid being there with you, that you're gonna like point out and be like, oh, like remember that scene? You know, like I don't
Yeah.
think that there was a ton of that in it. I do think though the performances. I don't know a girl from The Walking Dead's name, but I've been high on her. Like she's been great ever since she was a child on Walking Dead, and she kind of grew up through that show. And I've talked about it on here enough. Like she's a standout character in the later seasons of that show. Like she's kind of a badass. And I think seeing her in this, and she was super versatile. Like I mean, you had her. Like I imagine it's not difficult. It's not easy working off of like imaginary characters, right?
No.
Like in I think she did a great job of that. Her and Ryan Reynolds had really good chemistry together. she had like the dancing bits and stuff like that that I think all came off really well. Like I think she just showed to be really versatile in this role.
Yeah. I it always amazes me when you get like a good like crying scene from a child actor too.
Yeah, you're right. Because you know what I've been noticing more and more when I watch stuff is when actors are doing crying scenes, but they're not crying. You know,
Yeah, no,
like
like she was actually dripping tears.
yeah, like when actors are like emotional and like they're making sobbing noises, but there's no tears coming out. It's the most
Yeah.
awkward shit in the world. So
And
yeah,
like you're making the noises like you should be flooded.
yeah. I've been noticing that more and more. Maybe it's because like my TikTok algorithm is just all like the summer I turned pretty or something like
Like
that. Like I don't
I've
know.
often said like I'm not a very critical person when it comes to watching movies, but that's one of those things I've paid attention to for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, it hits a lot harder when they're actually able to like
Yeah.
get into that mode of
It's like
crying.
you can tell the difference between like, oh, like they, took some eye drops to try and squeeze a tear out for the scene versus like, oh no, you're getting some real tears there.
It's not eye drops. They have like what's called like a tear stick, and they
Oh,
like hold it up to their eyes. Maybe some of them use eye drops, but it's called like a tear stick. They like
that makes their eyes tear up.
yeah, they like rub it underneath their eye and it tears them up.
Just some raw onions.
I think it's like I don't know if it's like smelling salt shit or like or
Mm,
something like that, but yeah, it's some type of like thing that like floats up into their eyes and makes them water. But yeah, I
mm,
think that that's where you just get glassy eyes though. You don't get like true tears. Like true tears is a person like acting. I feel
yeah,
like they
like
had
really
to like
able to absorb the emotion of the role.
yeah, well, like they whatever they're doing, because they if I've heard enough actors talk about there's a million different ways that people get themselves to cry. Like some people can just do it. Some people have to think about specific things. Like some people, it's just being so caught up to your point in the role that they're in, whatever it might be. But yeah, like I think that I think for her, the good thing for being a child actor in something like this is you're going to remember her for her performance. You're not going to remember it for the performance of the movie in like a box office perspective as
Yeah,
much as whereas like a Ryan Reynolds, I think you more because of his age and his standard in Hollywood right now, like you're gonna look at it more in a is success or a failure from a box office perspective.
no.
Do you have the numbers there?
Yeah, we got 60 million worldwide,
And it cost
110.
yeah. So I mean, it's a kids movie, right? So you have the hope that there's like some legs to it. And it's able to kind of stick around. The fear that I think you have to have is you look at a movie like Fall Guys. The Fall Guys is already released on digital this week,
Oh wow.
or it's releasing on digital. So, like any chance that it had to make its money back in its box office run is essentially gone because it's like anybody who hasn't seen it at this point is just going to watch it on digital. On top of the fact that I read today, I have it. I took a picture of it. The Fall Guy is now available in digital, and it'll include an extended cut with 20 extra minutes of footage. So on top of the fact that like you're not going to see it in the theater because you probably would have already gotten to see it, you're getting more content to watch it from home. And I don't
Mm.
know if that's like if this was always the plan. I assume it's always the plan. Like, hey, we're going to release in the theater, and then like they sign some agreement to just have it out digital a month later, or if it's like you make the decision off of week one where you're like, yeah, this isn't performing the way that we want it to. Wave the white flag. Like, let's get this into homes so that people will buy it.
I feel like that's probably more accurate. Like it was probably a week one decision. Like, okay, we put in all this money into promoting this movie, and we didn't get the numbers we wanted out of week one. Let's push it to digital while we may still have some hype left on it.
Yeah, some buzz on there rather than like, I don't know, dude. It's so crazy to think when I was a kid and something would come out in the movie theater and you'd wait 6 months to see it on like a
Yeah,
shelf on a Walmart on a Friday night, you know?
yeah,
Like,
fucking
and
Wally
don't get
World.
me wrong, like it was just as much of like, the movie come out in the theater was like an appointment thing for me, like where it was like, oh, this movie's coming out this week, like Saturday, I'm seeing this movie, this movie, this movie. Like we're going for the whole day and we're going to see it. But it was just as much like that 6 months later, the excitement of going to Walmart on Friday nights because I would go with like my mother and my aunt, and it would be like I'm going right to the movie section. I'm spending the weekend at my grandparents' house, and I'm buying like the 2 or 3 new movies that came out. Plus, I'm gonna get like whatever terrible like Jean-Claude Van Damme movie dropped this week. You know,
It's adorable to know that you were always a movie nerd.
oh, this, I mean, like, this has never changed. Like, this is how I grew up, man. If you walked into, like,
Yeah,
I prided myself on the ages of, like, I don't know, like 10 to like probably 17 or 18. Even now, I mean, if you ask me, it's like I have 450 movies that I've purchased digital, you know?
yeah.
But in my house, it's like I would have like a
The
whole
big
wall
DVD rack.
of
Yeah,
DVDs. Like, yeah, I'd have like 3 or 4 racks of DVDs that you could
yeah,
choose through, you know? And it's like, and it's still nice to have them in all honesty, because there's times like there's stuff that's not digital yet that I have bought on DVD that I'm like, oh, should I still have that? Like, go find
yeah.
it,
I
you know?
remember my dad having like a massive like rack of like ton of fucking movies, and I remember I found my enjoyment in alphabetizing them.
I had mine alphabetized. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember like it was just like one weekend. I was just like, this is a mess. And I just pulled everything off and I was just like
Uh,
alphabetizing everything. Yeah. And then it was like, and then blue. It's like the problem that became for me, and honestly, why I switched to digital is because like everything was on DVD, and then it all came out on Blu-ray, and I rebought a ton of it on Blu-ray, and then
uh,
4K drops, and it's like, fuck this. I'm not buying, like, movies take up a lot of space at some point, and
yeah.
and like it used to be when I was a kid too. I don't know if you ever did this. Like, you could go to Newberry Comics and you could like trade back in your, like, you could do like trade-ins, essentially sell back your movies to Newberry Comics, and like they'd give you money for them, and they always sold like used movies there, which I always loved. Like, I was always just go through their used movies you could buy.
I never did it at Newberry Comics, but I did do like a few trade-ins at CEX in Downtown Crossing.
Yeah. Remember
Uh,
also the Virgin Music Store in Boston?
no.
It was like 3 floors. It was in, I want to say it was in like the theater district area.
Okay.
Like, and it was like the first 2 floors were all like CDs, and then the third floor was movies.
Huh.
I just remember that when I was younger, and I used to think that was like when I was like a teenager and I was like old enough to go into Boston by myself. Like, I remember going in there a few times, and I always thought that was cool. It was the Virgin Record Store was the name of it. Yeah, it's just a bunch of people who hadn't had sex yet. Bunch of nerds buying
Of course, you
movies.
couldn't resist to make that joke.
Just a bunch of fucking losers buying movies.
I was gonna be so proud of you for just moving past that one. You couldn't help it.
Nah, dude, I couldn't let that one get away. um, yeah, so it is a bummer like that. This probably didn't have with the launch. Although I don't like I know it underperformed for what they wanted it to make. You have to hope like what is this Rotten Tomato score on this? I imagine it's like
Uh,
in the 70s.
or if
Mm-hmm.
ugh. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 48%,
All
but the
right.
audience score is 87.
So okay, let's get it. I want to get into spoilers because I want to touch on the like Rotten Tomatoes thing a little bit. Um, recommend or no recommend?
I think I'd recommend it, but I'd probably say it's more of a recommend for like parents that want to take their kids out for a movie night.
Yeah, I think if you have a kid that's like between the ages of like 5 to 10, 5 to 12,
Yeah,
that's a really solid pocket that's going to get a lot of this
because I
movie.
wouldn't say this is like the family movie, like say like Shrek, where it's like, oh no, this is great for all ages. Like it's one of those things where it's enjoyable to watch if you have a kid with you. I think.
I think the variety of all of the different imaginary friends
Mhm.
is something that like kids are going to love. Right? Like just
Yeah,
like there's a really good variety of imaginary friends that they create out of this that I think are all pretty cool. I think as a parent, there's things you're going to realize are going on a lot faster than like a kid's going to get like the fulfillment or the payoff by the end of it, I guess, to a point, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I tend to agree. Like, I would recommend. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily if you're an adult going to just check out a movie as much. Like I don't think you're going to get that. It's not going to hit for you that way. At least it didn't for me, or it sounds like for you. But I think if you're a
Yeah.
parent, you have kids, that pocket, like I said, 5 to 12, it's a pretty solid option. And I think it's a good lead into summer movie as far as like you got nothing going on a random day during the week and you're just trying to give the kids something to watch. Like I imagine this is a movie that sells out on a Wednesday afternoon that doesn't sell out on a Saturday night, you know?
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, spoiler. The the Rotten Tomato score, what what do you think they didn't like about it to that level? Because like that's not just like, hey, that this movie's not for us. Like they're essentially telling you that more people gave it a bad review than a good review. And I'm just trying to figure out like what is it that was outwardly bad about this?
I don't know really. I mean, like, again, like I said, maybe it didn't really appeal to all age groups, and like most of these critics are like adults, but like at the same time, like they have to definitely be taking that into consideration. I'm not really sure what the miss would be for them. Because
So
like while I say I came out of the movie like not like over enthused about it, I didn't come out saying like, oh, that was a bad movie, like nobody should go see it.
I think I could see there being a like a review being like this movie sets out to be really creative and fun, but it misses the mark on the humor. Like could you see that being like a critic review?
Yeah.
You know, for what it's worth, like I, I'm probably not going to cry in a movie with you next to me. But I, I don't think this movie would have gotten emotions out of me if I was by myself either. And I think that that would have been the mark of like how well this movie lands. Cause I think at the end of the day, it's meant to be a comedy, but it's obviously meant to have an emotional angle to it.
I guess that's probably the biggest miss is it seems like where it's positioned as a comedy, it was focused more on the message than the humor.
Yeah, and since we're in spoilers to give more context, right? It's so John Krasinski. It's weird because they never really tell you what's wrong with him. They just basically tell you he's suffering from a broken heart, is what I
Which
gather.
I just assumed it was some sort of like heart disease or maybe like a blockage or I don't know, something.
Yeah, but it's just weird that you never. I almost feel like maybe it's a couple things are weird, right? They don't tell you ever what it is. They chalk it up to his wife has died, and ever since that, he has been not himself, right? You're led to believe if you're an adult, I guess. Like for kids, I think it's just like he's a broken guy. But
Yeah.
for like adults, you're like, well, there's got to be something more, and there's even more reason to think there's something more because by the end of it, it's like he's getting ready for a surgery. And I think the other weird part is that they explain it in a way that makes sense. Like she doesn't want to spend her time in the hospital because like she doesn't want to come to grips with the idea that she might lose another parent. Like she's already suffered a traumatic event of losing her mother and spending a lot of time in the hospital. And her dad was the one who helped her get her through that by never making it feel like, he was always able to keep it light and like have fun while all of it was happening. So, but it is a little weird that she, like the day of his surgery, isn't even at the hospital with him. She's more concerned with like the finding
Signing the
people,
yeah.
imaginary friends. I think that that was a little weird. But like it all builds up to this thing of him getting surgery, and I think that that's where it's weird that you don't know what his ailment is because you don't know what he's getting surgery. You know, so you don't. I don't think that you, as like the viewer, can register the seriousness of it, other than the fact that I think you're almost made to assume that it's serious enough that he could die just because it's the movie is telling you.
Yeah.
Whereas I think giving you like the real circumstances in some way. And maybe it doesn't have to be a scene with the daughter. Maybe it's a scene with the mother talking to the doctors outside of the room, and you're just a viewer and you get that context.
I get where you're going with that, but I think I also get why they wouldn't go all into that is because this is made more for kids. And just
Yeah,
like that would probably be like disinteresting details for them.
but that's such a quick scene to give the
Yeah.
layers to the parents that are watching this, to the adults that are watching it. Because I think that those are the things that make this transcend just being a kids movie, right? And I
Yeah.
think to some levels, if you want to have the box office success, we've talked about it. Like, I think that you need to be able to touch on all of those age groups when you're making this kind of movie. Because again, I think that everybody understood the emotional aspects of a Toy Story, you know?
Yeah.
Um, like, I guess like Shrek's not overly
Not
emotional,
an emotional
but
movie,
you
no.
understand the theme, and like you're able to invest into the characters and what they're working for. And I just think that like a broken heart isn't why this guy's dying. And like we're all smart enough to know that, but then all of a sudden he's on his deathbed. And
Yeah.
like we're meant to like I just couldn't be. I knew there was nothing seriously going to happen with it, for a multitude of reasons. Like they weren't going to kill off both parents. I think that like I'm logical enough and have seen enough movies to know that much. But on top of that, I had nothing to tell me that he was dealing with anything serious, because all you've told me he's dealing with is a broken heart.
Yeah.
You know, um, and I just wonder if even that, like, because the it's not funny enough, I think, for all viewers. And then I don't think that while she performs great, like I think her monologue to him in that moment, like you said, the
Yeah.
tears and everything is performed really well. But I don't think that ever like caught me. Like it never made me like feel in that regard, right? Like I think as a
Yeah.
human, you feel for this idea of a kid potentially losing both of their kids, but like you
Both
don't
their
have enough
parents.
of you don't even have enough of them together, because she so much avoids it. It almost feels like Ryan Reynolds is more the father figure to her through a lot of this movie.
Which I think that was part of the
The point.
story, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So then, but like, isn't it weird then that like the more emotional scene is her thinking she's not going to have her imaginary friend again, versus like the feeling
Versus
of
like you
her
just almost lost your father. Yeah.
dad. Like I don't think that they did that intentionally in the movie, because I think that scene of her thinking her dad died is like meant to be the emotional scene more so. That I don't know if it played out that way as a viewer.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's critically why the the critic score is the way that it is.
Yeah. Like it didn't have the depth it was going for.
Yeah, because it's not a very common thing to me that a movie like this scores so low critically. Like I generally think movies like this are kind of made for critics to give them a relatively high score
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
Was there any other gripes that you think that people would have with it?
I mean, I guess I feel like they didn't do enough with the characters. I mean, this is all be supposed to be centered around the imaginary friends, and I don't think we got enough expansion on that. Like, I don't even understand the whole like ascension thing they had with when they found their original person that created them or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a couple things there to your point. Like, I would have liked more scenes of them trying to match people up with new best friends.
Yeah.
I don't think you got enough of that in it. But at the same time, the movie's already about 2 hours long. It's like
How much longer do they make it? Yeah.
you can't
So it's
make it
almost like they
longer.
focused on the wrong parts.
Yeah, like well, to make a cohesive movie, I think they focused on the right parts. And I wonder if there's a world where you'd want to have a sequel that you're probably not going to get now. Um,
I don't see what a sequel would do for me. No.
I mean, more expansion on those characters, maybe more of a focus on the characters rather than the person in a
Yeah.
sequel. But yeah, I think that I think that they had a really diverse group of characters. You got really one great scene of them moving through like the retirement home and then like interviewing all of them, that I thought like showcased a lot of those characters. But then the only
Yeah.
time you saw them attempt to pair anybody with was with the little kid in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen more of that. And then yeah, like even I think the end of the movie gives you more of what that ascension process looks like in a way. than what in the actual movie when they start finding out like is, like I had said this to you, like the scene with the grandmother who was the first person to remember her imaginary friend. Like I don't think that you really got a payoff to me of that
No,
relationship.
because she never even saw her.
Yeah, like you never got this like thing of like her turning around and seeing her imaginary friend and being like, "Oh my god, like I had forgotten all about you." It's just like it's almost like the imaginary friend's at peace because she knows that she's back to doing the things that she did when she was a kid. Like like that's kind of
Yeah.
weird. I guess the only one that you kind of got validation from was what is Steve Carell's character's name? Do you remember?
Uh, fuck. Was it Blue?
Blue. You're right. Um, it, you get that with Blue a little bit of like putting his hand on the shoulder, and then like the guy's just like at peace to go in and like crush his interview.
Yeah.
Like, but he even still didn't see his imaginary friend,
Yeah.
which is then weird because yeah, at the end of the movie, like they all start seeing, him, you know.
Yeah, it's just a weird twist to the concept.
And in theory, it's also weird that like she's able to see because like
Everybody's imaginary friend.
well, like in hers, right? Because I think
Yeah.
that like what I was saying before the spoilers is like I think we both realized fairly early on that like Ryan Reynolds, it's kind of like the Pikachu formula too from Detective Pikachu, when
Yeah.
like Ryan Reynolds ends up being his dad, who is
Yeah.
also a Pikachu. Like it's kind of that same thing where you're like, oh, like this isn't a real person who can also see imaginary friends. Like he is just her imaginary friend, but she hasn't remembered him up to this point. So why is she able to see him, but all these other ones aren't? And I don't think that that was ever clearly
But
explained.
I guess a lot of it is left open to interpretation. The way I interpreted that was the way the other people were remembering their imaginary friends is because they were remembering their childhood feelings around the time when they had them.
Yeah.
And I think she invented her imaginary friend as like a coping mechanism.
Yeah, and like she was trying so hard to present as an adult, but in all reality, she still was that
Yeah.
kid, right?
Yeah.
Um, didn't they reference like a chosen one thing, like in the very first time she goes up and sees all of them? Like, doesn't the girl, like the grandmother's one, kind of say like, "Oh, is she's the one who's gonna find us all like new friends or something like that?"
I don't remember.
I feel like there was something in that that they didn't really expand on that well.
Mm.
Um, the only other gripe I would say with it, and it's weird because like all I've said in the spoiler part is I think we've mainly focused on negatives, and honestly, a lot of this is making me rethink my ranking on this movie. I think I might have it
Yeah.
ranked too high, and I might have to drop it. But like I'll explain my thought process, I guess, on that in a minute. The only other gripe I would have is I think some of the funniest scenes are already used in the trailer.
Yeah.
The pencil scene, right, with the put a towel on, like you're freaking everybody
Oh,
out.
it was a pencil. It was a banana.
You're right. Are we sure? Thought it was a pencil.
Yeah. No, it
Um,
was a banana.
because I thought the pencil tip was what they were referencing.
Uh,
The marshmallow with the droopy eye
yeah.
is also in the trailer. I think the only funny part that I don't know if it was in the trailer is honestly the cup of ice. I think is like maybe like the funniest imaginary
Yeah.
friend, and it's really like just the part where Blue goes to drink him. I think is like
Yeah.
very funny. Cloak and Dagger, uh,
Oh,
funny
yeah. Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Realistically, controversial at points, but funny. Funny. I thought like his end scene was funny when he goes back to his imaginary friend. Also, just him like Ryan Reynolds' physical comedy with him, I thought was pretty good too.
Yeah.
They're definitely the ones that stood out the most were those characters. I can't think of any others. Like the raccoon was okay. Hmm. Yeah, no others. But like, yeah, I think that that's my
Yeah.
only other thing is like the funniest character. I think the funniest scenes were really used mostly in the trailer.
Which is again what portrayed it as being a funnier movie because you're like, oh, there's going to be more of this.
Yeah, yeah, and it's And maybe it focused too much on being a sentimental movie and not enough on just being a comedy.
And that's kind of the vibe I got.
Yeah. That can be a knock on John Krasinski as a director, too. And I assume the partially writer of this.
Yeah.
So as far as rankings are concerned, yeah, I think I do. It's a weird thing because I think I rated it as high as I did because I think there is a level of rewatchability to me with this movie. And I had to rank it up against like other heartwarming movies. So I
Yeah.
think you're looking at us for us, Arthur the King and Unsung Hero, right?
Yeah.
So I rated it like right in the pocket of those. And I think that there's a higher level of rewatchability for me in this movie than there are in those. Like,
Okay.
I think I'll definitely watch this before I'd ever watch Unsung Hero again. So, like, maybe upon viewing, I think that, like, there's aspects of Unsung Hero that are better than this.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think that it has, like, this feeling for me where I would, like, first of all, like, where I would watch it again or where I'd necessarily tell somebody, like, oh, you've never seen that before? Like, you should check it
And
out.
this kind of
You
goes
know?
back into like the debate we were going through when we were talking about your list for last year is like, are you ranking based on like a critical perspective or on your own personal enjoyment? You
Yeah.
know?
And I think we leaned more into personal enjoyment on that, right?
Well, yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Beekeeper ahead of Origin.
Yeah. There you go. Point made. Point made. Um, so I think the rewatchability debate becomes Arthur the King versus this, right?
Okay,
And I
for
think
you.
so. Okay, look, what is it for you before I give like ranking? Like, what is the conversation for the thought process around your where you're going to rank something like this?
I mean, I think for me, we're comparing so many movies and different genres, and we have to rank them against each other. It just comes back to, what did the movie set out to do and how well did it do it and how much did I enjoy it?
Yeah,
And,
that's fair.
for that, I put it behind both of those first off, but also a couple steps lower.
Yeah, I'm really torn on this one because I do feel like I have it ranked too high, but at the same time,
So like I have it rated 3 stars, and I think that's fair for it. I have no
I also
quarrels in
have it
my
at three
mind about that.
stars. I have it at
Yeah,
three
like I have
stars.
no
Yeah.
quarrels in my mind about that. It was more so just where do I position it in the list? And I ended up dropping it in at 12th.
Oh, we're dead even. 12. I have it at 12.
Oh, you have it at 12. Okay.
Yeah. So you just still have Unsung and Arthur the King higher than I have them.
Yeah.
Because I have Arthur the King at 13 and I have Unsung at 14.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're flipped in that one.
So, okay. So, like, I dropped mine in at 12. I think the debate that comes into that is like, I think you make good points as far as like, what did it set out to be and did it accomplish it? I think for the most part, this probably accomplishes most of what it wants to do.
It felt like it set out more on the message, but I also feel like it was set out to be a comedy and it missed a little bit on that side.
Sure. Yeah. The only other movies I kind of debate is like when you give it that logic. Well, like, did Abigail do a better job of like accomplishing what it set out to be? You know, did Monkey Man do a better job of setting out doing to what it set out to
I have those lower.
be? Me too. And this is where I'm saying like maybe it should be lower on the list because if that's the logic we're looking at things from, did
Yeah.
those movies accomplish that more?
Don't forget personal enjoyment is also a factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you still lean towards you enjoyed this more than Monkey.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So we both have this at 12.
Yeah. Like
So
I didn't leave this movie with a feeling of like, what the fuck did I just watch or anything like that. It was just like, okay, that was good. Like
yeah.
it's a very mid movie, and I think I ranked accordingly on that.
I mean, it's not really mid when you get into the amount of movies we've seen at this point. I guess it's mid on the list now, but by the end of the year,
Yeah.
where does it kind of end up, you know?
Time will tell.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some news. Some news. If you haven't yet, like I said, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let us know what you thought
Ooh.
about this movie, all that stuff, please. Please, please, please. Get us that Bucky sponsorship. What is your opinion on companies, like all of these companies now pushing bundle streaming services? Started with Disney, and I feel like we're starting to see more and more kind of push
Wow, what
out for
other
that.
ones do we have?
So I feel like Sony has talked about it. Can you look this up real quick? Because I don't have this in front of me, but I feel like Sony has recently talked about having their own bundled streaming service with like Paramount.
Hmm.
Um, and now I have a new one from Comcast that they're talking about offering. It comes September, I think. Or actually, they don't give a date. But
Um, I'm not seeing anything for Sony.
try looking up like Paramount Plus bundle.
Uh,
So Comcast is talking about launching a service called Stream Saver, and it'll be a streaming service that offers Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV Plus for $15 a month.
hmm.
All right, you're an Apple TV guy. I'm not. There's a show on Apple TV right now that I've got to find out the name because I want you to watch it for me and tell me if it's any good.
Okay, that gives me a lot to go on.
I'll try and find that. Do you? So, what do you think of the price point? What do you think of the options?
So what do we say? $15, and what do we get? Paramount Plus,
No, not Paramount.
Peacock. Oh,
Peacock,
sorry.
Netflix, Apple TV.
All of that for $15.
Yeah,
But this is part of an Xfinity subscription, right? Or service. Like, do I have to have cable through them to get that?
it doesn't say. It does not say.
Because that's the only way that pricing makes sense. Is like they're trying to retain people from cutting the cord by saying, "Hey, you get our cable package. We'll also throw out some streaming for you, super cheap."
So I think it makes sense in to me. I think you're probably maybe right in some of that. To me, what I thought it said to me is like they're gonna have a million ads on this. Like you're able to get it for $15 a month because you're gonna get like killed with commercial ads.
Because isn't the ad version of Peacock free?
Yes. No, no,
Or like,
no.
no, I
It's
think you have
cheap.
to pay to
It's
get
like
certain
it's
shows,
like
but I think it's like
seven
six or
dollars a
something. Yeah,
month. Yeah, but like there's an ad version of Netflix, correct? And that's even like
and that's eight
$14. Oh,
dollars.
it's $8. Okay, that's cheaper than
Yeah.
I thought. And Apple TV is how much a month? With and I assume there's no ads on there.
9, I think, or 10. No ads. There's no
So
ad version. It's
we're
just
we're
one
talking
stream.
about $30 in value that you're getting for 15.
Sure, you're rounding up. I'd say like 20,
Yeah, like I was 100%
25.
rounding up just for easy. I was thinking more like 27. I just didn't think we had to do this whole conversation.
25.
So 15, like you're saving a bit of money, but like I just imagine Xfinity, yeah, it's just going to kill you with ads through the whole thing to recoup the money differential. And I
The
think
only way I see this being a good deal again is if it's a standalone subscription bundle. If I have to have their cable service to get it, fuck that. The whole
for
point of
me
streaming
though,
is
like the beauty of streaming for so long has been not having commercials.
yeah.
Like not being inundated with commercials has been why I love streaming for so long. And I think that that's one of my issues now with like moving towards this type of bundling. And obviously for a lot of these companies, like everybody's trying to keep themselves above water with these streaming services. That's why you're seeing more and more of them kind of grouping together to try and bundle in a way.
The competition's definitely gotten pretty steep between them.
Yeah, and it's like part of me gets it because it's like, yeah, to not have commercials and get 4K on Netflix now, it's like soon enough I'm going to be paying $30 a month for it. Like,
Yeah.
and it comes back to like what's valuable to me. They might have me forever because of how much I don't want to watch commercials while I'm watching stuff because I fucking hate with
I
like
could do that with so many other streaming services though. Why Netflix?
they still have stuff that like I watch from time to time. I trash them more than about anybody, but like
It's to the
Outer
point
Banks
now
is
where
gonna
I've
drop, and like I'm gonna need them.
that's a tough one for me because like I've definitely come across shit sometimes where I'm like, oh, this looks good. Where's this streaming? Oh, Netflix. Never mind. Don't care.
Yeah, but like watching stuff on Hulu, like I get taken in and out of immersion because
because of
I
ads.
have
Yeah,
the ad version of that, you know?
I also have the ad version because it's still included with one of my other
Yeah,
things.
I have it with Spotify, I think.
I think it's still included with my now T-Mobile plan, but formerly Sprint.
I sometimes think about dropping the Spotify bundle that I have because I don't know that it's saving like $8 a month and just switching to the Disney bundle
Mm.
and get because like
How much is the Spotify bundle?
I mean I think I just pay the $10 a month and I get Spotify included and I get Hulu included.
Oh,
It was like a promotion that I signed up for at some point.
mm.
Um, Whereas like the Disney one, it's like I already pay for Disney. I don't get to watch as much live sports because I don't have cable. So the ESPN Plus like aspect of it is interesting to me in some regards.
That's still only a small portion of it, right? Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
It's weird though, like because even like Disney, like I watched a WNBA game on Disney Plus the other
yeah.
day. Yeah,
You're a Clark stan?
yeah. I wouldn't call myself a stan, but like most people, I'm interested enough as a sports fan that like when I saw her, it was on Disney Plus. I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. They're putting live sports on here now, and like that
Yeah.
shows the impact that she has. That like I threw
I
it
hope
on.
she's getting the bag because she has given the NBA such an eye right now.
She WNBA.
WNBA,
She
sorry.
she just signed a thing with like Rawlings or something like the company that makes the basketballs.
Yeah.
Like she is definitely getting the bag. She's getting
Yeah.
multiple bags.
Well, I've seen all like the like promo she's getting with like other companies, but I just feel
The
like
WNBA is not paying her. They don't have the money. Like they just because this 1 year they're getting this like emphasis. They're a franchise that historically has never made money.
I gotcha.
You know, like this is the first year they're getting this level of viewership. And like there's questions like
Well, she
last
has a
night.
good run, then
Yeah,
maybe that changes for them.
it's going to come down to her level of success. Like if
Yeah.
she's on pace, she's leading their league right now in 3-pointers. If she breaks the record in year 1 for 3-pointers in the WNBA, I think that's a solid start. She's on a bad team. Like I think that that's the thing that's going to hurt is that like they matched her up from what I can tell. Like not that I'm like some huge follower of WNBA, but like I read shit and like listen to things. They matched her up with a lot of tough teams to start the season. I don't think they've won a game yet. But like yesterday,
Mm.
she left with an injury, was down like 20 and came back and they covered the spread, which the spread was only like 6 points. So like she was able to bring them back like pretty substantially. And she even said herself, like the first couple games, she was trying to be a good teammate and get her teammates involved and like pass the ball. And then she realized in the past couple games, like I just need to go back to being like an assassin from 3 and just shooting. Uh,
Damn.
and she's doing that. And like she's going to be the make or break for it. But like she's not going to get the money from them. I think but they're like, this is the first time that they're flying on like private jets, like shit like that. Like they were flying on like regular flights like anybody else like a year ago, you know,
That's
they're on
crazy.
like Spirit airline flights to get to their games and shit. Like, so
Spirit doesn't even have first class.
yes, they do. My friend, I have flown on a Spirit
No,
first
no, they
class.
have the upgraded extra legroom front seats. That is not first class.
It was pretty nice, dude. I've said
gotten
this
it too.
a million
gotten
times
it too.
over. I will fly Spirit forever if I just get the front row of the plane.
Dude, I got it once. Like, I didn't pay for the preferred seating or everything or anything. I just walked up, they printed my ticket and were like, yeah, you got first row.
Oh,
And I was like, sick.
no, 100%. Like I walked up to the little thing to like check in and it was like, do you want to upgrade your seats for this flight? And I was like, it was like $10. I was like, sure, dude. Like,
So the thing asked me and I said no.
okay.
And then when I went to check in and the lady printed my ticket, it was like, yeah, 1A or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, sick.
I like having nobody in front of you. I was just legs stretched out. They brought me a couple screwdrivers, dude. I was living the life.
That was another sick thing. When they came down the aisle with the cart, not only did I get first pick, I get my snacks, my drinks, and everything, and then they go, "Oh shit, our card machine's not working. Don't worry about it." Wink, wink. I was like, sick.
So, but like they winked you, but like they probably just gave every other person free drinks too, no? Or she just brought the card back.
She brought the cart back.
Sick.
It was basically just me and the guy next to me who was like, "Nah, I saw that. What about me?"
So you're saying they don't have first class, motherfucker? They treat you like first class.
That's about as first class as it gets with Spirit, and it was all
Yes.
by
Yeah,
accident.
no, that's good. I don't know why we keep hating on Spirit, dude. Like
I don't.
that.
I don't.
That is
Let
a
me be
premier
clear here.
flying experience.
I don't hate on Spirit. I just know it's not upper echelon. It is very much like the Toyota Corolla of flying.
Oh, old and reliable, and it'll work for 200,000 miles. Okay. All right.
But no amenities.
Yeah, sold, dude. I'm telling you, like, if the like, I will just buy first class Spirit airline tickets from now until infinity if that's my experience, dude.
Stop calling it first class.
Motherfucker, it's better than the experience I've gotten. I did Delta Comfort, and I don't want to be offensive here, but I ended up with a woman who was larger than me, and I had to do the thing where like I paid for the comfort,
You couldn't
so
share the armrest.
She bodied me, dude. She like I'm watching the seat right in front of me is when they have the single seats. And I was walking up to my seat and I was like, oh, like counting the rows. And I'm like, am I going to get a single seat right now? This is fucking lit. And then I get there and it's a 2-seater and we're getting closer and closer to nobody else getting on the flight. And I'm like, okay, maybe nobody else is sitting next to me. I see this woman walk on the plane and I'm like,
you just knew.
I know what's happening here. I
know how my luck works.
Yeah, I know what this is going to be. And she's getting closer and closer. And I'm like, yep, here we go. Here we are. And then she stopped at my seat. And yeah, from that point on, I never had an armrest. I was pinned against the side of the plane. And that was my life. I had no choice. I was like, yeah. So I'm telling you, first class is Spirit, not Delta Comfort. I'll tell you that much. Spirit, my seat was double the size. I had nobody sit in front of me. The guy next to me never said a word to me. That was perfect.
Yeah, no, the guy next to me was cool.
Yeah. They had little trays that you can put out in front of you. I love
I had my iPad sitting on it. I was watching movies.
Yeah, it's not like the seat down one. It's like an actual like, lift up, fold out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was sick.
Streaming services. I don't know how we got there. Yeah, I don't know. We'll wait and see on this. I'm not going to sign up for it, but I am always interested. Like some of these bundles do sound appealing. I want to see what the feedback is before it's like, because I just have to imagine, to your point, it's either, hey, do you have an active Xfinity subscription? Or B, are you cool with having a million ads on everything you watch?
I got to say, man, I love the way you deliver the news.
Yeah.
You just read headlines and make your own assumptions on it. And you're like, yeah, that's what I'm going to tell people.
Well, to be fair on this one, there wasn't really much more to work off of, dude.
And I had questions and you couldn't answer them.
I don't read headlines. Guy are you? I read Twitter. And we had this conversation yesterday. There ain't newspapers anymore, dude. We just read Twitter. I have pages on Twitter I go to. I find out what's on there. And then it's like fucking shoot from the hip, baby.
I need you to start subtweeting with some questions.
Yeah, okay, I got you. The show I was talking about on Apple TV Plus that I'd like you to watch is Dark Matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I actually have that on my watch list. I just haven't gone to it yet.
So it's like the trailer shows like this cube, and like in the cube, it's all these different variations of your life.
It just came out, right?
Yeah, it's all these different variations of your life. And he thinks that another version of himself killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the actors in it, Jennifer Connelly, and then the dude from Warrior. Don't remember his name. I like both of them. So Joel Edgerton. Yeah. Sorry, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have that added on my list actually. Oh, all right.
Yeah, to your point, as far as news that I've done no research on, and I'm just reading a headline about, there's a live action The Sims movie that'll be moving forward at Amazon MGM Studios. Margot Robbie will produce with Kate Herron set to direct.
I'm sorry, you've read that and you didn't have questions? You don't have more information?
Well, no, but I like to make assumptions in conversations.
Like, what the fuck is a Sims movie gonna be?
Well, this is my questions. Like, I just had, I had questions. I just thought we'd ask them together.
So this is either a movie just about regular people living regular, mundane lives, or it's a movie about someone controlling somebody living a regular, mundane life.
I was like, my initial thought was like, so this is like the real world? Like, what? What is this? I don't get it. But yeah, actually, you're
Uh,
probably like spot on. It's probably going to be like somebody plays the game and it's just like the people in the game. It's all Barbie, right?
this
So
sounds
like
dumb.
so it's all Barbie. Barbie was successful, so now like Minecraft is like, oh, we can do that, and
Minecraft.
Minecraft has a movie coming out. Like it's already finished. Jack Black,
Oh shit.
Jason Momoa, a bunch of people in it. But this is very much like, yeah, all these Sims are gonna think that they're real people. It's kind of like Free Guy when you think about it. That Ryan Reynolds movie, Free Guy.
That movie is great. Don't equate that to this
But
because this is
doesn't
probably gonna suck.
but isn't it like the same thing where like all the characters in the game think that they're real people
Yeah.
and they're just NPCs? Like this is all going to be the same stuff where it's like you're going to be in this virtual world and everybody in the virtual world thinks that they're real people, and I feel like there's going to be one person who like Truman shows it and is like, I don't want to be controlled by you anymore.
I'm gonna go on a sidetrack here real quick. How crazy do you think video games are gonna get once game creators start implementing AI for NPCs?
What do you mean? Like
Like,
free thinking NPCs?
yeah.
Is that not already a thing?
No, not really. They're just pre-scripted with like a single reaction for the most part.
Yeah, GTA hasn't like pushed that limit yet.
Not really. There's not really any life to the NPCs. Like they say the same things, they react the same way to everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like versus like if there's like some individuality to them they can add with AI. How crazy does that
Do you
get?
think GTA would be the first game to implement that?
Yeah, but probably not with six, considering they're already pushing it as an almost completed project. I don't
It's
think they go back and try and add all that in now.
I think you're onto something. I think it's either them or The Sims that would really be the first.
Like, I don't doubt Rockstar doing it, but maybe with like Red Dead 3 or something.
Sorry, I have a bug flying around and
I heard it.
it fucked me up for a second. It keeps distracting me. Yeah, okay. Red Dead could be another one that actually could do
Uh,
it. Um, I've never played Red Dead, by the way, and like I want
I
to.
played the first one. I never played the second one.
The second one's like one of the like people stream it and like talk about how amazing it
Uh,
is. And like I want to play it, but I don't know. I just like I feel like I missed it kind of. But then you see a bunch of people that are like, I'm gonna try and keep talking. That are like, I wish that I could go back to my first time playing through Red Dead.
mm.
Uh,
I mean, that is one of the cool things with like these Rockstar games. Is like the storyline is pretty dense and enjoyable.
I think what well, for two things that draw me away from it is first of all, like I don't actually like those kind of games that much. Like as I've talked about on here before,
Yeah,
like I don't like feeling like I have to do the same missions a bunch of times. Like I don't want to do all the side stuff and shit like that. That I
yeah.
feel like you have to do in like the Spider-Man games and like GTA. I always enjoyed, but like
GTA never really had like a ton of side missions. Like there's side missions, but you never really felt any allure to go do them.
how many times do you have to like tow a truck? I don't. I didn't want to do it.
Not that often. Like I think the missions have a good amount of diversity with the limitations of the game mechanics, which aren't very limiting to be fair, but like
Yeah, I think I've just always enjoyed more of like as far as like storyline games, like the Uncharted, the Metal Gear Solids, like that's just Last of Us. Like those are my uh style of game more than like those open
yeah.
world games are, you know? I always appreciate the immensity of the universes and like all of the stuff that you can do, but I just lose focus on actually completing the story. And the other drawback I've always heard about Red Dead is I've heard the first hour or so of gameplay is pretty dry. Like there's not a lot. Like
Mm.
you're just like learning how to play the game, and you're like working up this like it's like winter or something, and I think you're like working up like a mountain, and then like once you get past that first hour is where the game really opens up, and you start to like experience all these different things.
Mm.
So I don't know. So
Interesting.
we're not in on the Sims movie.
Yeah. I can't expect much from it. I mean, Margot Robbie's great, but
It's
I just
interesting that she is producing this off of Barbie.
Oh, producing. I thought you said she was in it. Producing. Okay.
producing. Yeah. So it's like interesting, and it's like I wonder if somebody just was like, "Hey, you did Barbie, and like that was really successful. Like, would you be interested in hopping in on The Sims?" And she was like, "I loved Barbies, and then the next thing I loved was The Sims because I didn't know a girl when I was like 14 or 15 that didn't love like The Sims 3."
Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
My only other thing is like if they don't have a scene with somebody trapped in a swimming pool in this movie, it's not an accurate portrayal of what The Sims was really like because
Or a scene where all the fucking walls and windows and doors
well,
disappear.
yeah, because it's like the girls loved Sims, but the only thing that guys knew about it was that you could just trap people in
Yeah.
places. So, like, if you're gonna appeal to me at all, characters need to be getting stuck inside of shit.
Oh man.
Speaking of Margot Robbie, so the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot that's been rumored for quite some time. There's two different Pirates of the Caribbean movies that have been confirmed by Jerry Bruckheimer, who was the person who made the originals. There's going to be a reboot that's being worked on by Jeff Nathanson, which is the person who wrote The Lion King. And then there's also a
Okay.
spin-off that's starring Margot Robbie that is in the works. We talked about this a few different times. I just think it's interesting. Like it's getting movement. Johnny Depp doesn't look to be attached to any of them. I kind of wish that you were getting a Keira Knightley and Legolas. What's his name?
I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name.
Not Ewan McGregor.
um,
These are always ones when people are just yelling at me. Like, I'm a name guy.
Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, Orlando Bloom. I kind of wish that both of them were still attached in some way, even if Johnny Depp's not. But it's fine that they're not. I feel like I've asked you before, but are you a Pirates fan?
I've actually never watched any of them.
Would you?
Maybe. I just think outside of like going to the movie theaters, I think for me to watch a movie at home, it's very much based on like I have to be in like a certain mood for it. So if I catch myself in maybe an open-minded mood to watch Pirates of the Caribbean, maybe.
But you
I
haven't
don't
been
know.
watching TV shows recently, right?
No.
So maybe like this is the right time to start getting through some movies.
Yeah.
You know, the original trilogy, pretty solid. Fourth and fifth, yeah, you know, like probably like not that crazy, but fine, whatever. Like I didn't like On Stranger Tides, which I believe is the fourth one, but I didn't hate the fifth one.
Okay.
Probably not a popular opinion for that, but the first one, classic, and then two and three, pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what I got for the news. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you this question:
Do you have it?
do you have it? Taste.
Taste.
If you do have taste, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe because we need a Buc-ee's subscription or a sponsorship.
I love
Okay.
it. Bucky's is one of the like 30 people that watch this.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. All we got to get this right in front of is the right eyes. Hey,
Yeah.
Buc-ee's, we're your guys. I have no shame. I'll wear a whole little costume of that little guy into the podcast for you. I don't give a shit. I'll shave my teeth down to Buckeyes. Buck teeth.
Buckeyes.
Yeah. I'll wear Buckeyes and have buck teeth. Okay, let's start here. Let's start with the movie we both saw together. So we did AMC Screen Unseen this week. Did I get that right?
Yep, you did actually.
Yeah, we got to revisit one of those. It's been weeks or months for me since I've gone to one. You've been to some more recently than that. Interestingly enough, I can tell it's really bothering Dante that he doesn't have a lead on me anymore because he thought he was sneaking into a movie on me or some shit. It's actually bothering him more that I've done the thing now where like I've gotten on here and not told him I've seen shit. So he thought he could like have this thing where I was going to do a whole review on a movie and he could then be like, guess what, motherfucker? I saw this movie too, because he snuck into the theater after me and then left before the lights turned on. And he was wearing black from head to toe, like a goddamn ninja. He was going to get out of there. But I saw the shine off of his nose ring, and I was like, you ain't getting away from me that easy, buddy.
Just had to, okay. Just had to throw that one in. We're going to talk about real quick how we do this podcast every week. We look at each other. And just before we started recording, Lenny told me he just noticed last week that I had a nose ring.
I wonder if the people have noticed. I was like zooming in. I was like, is that like, I was like, is it just something on the camera? Not only do I see you on here every week in face to face, like I see you in real life. Like I don't know why it is not registered. Has it always been a hoop? Was it a stud before?
It's been a hoop since October.
Fuck, dude. Because like I feel like I knew you had a stud at some point. Am I correct?
I think so, maybe. I don't remember if you commented on it.
Do you want me to get my nose pierced too?
You'd be a septum piercing kind of guy.
That'd be sick, dude, if we both had our nose pierced. I'll get the one that goes from my ear to my nose. The little chain.
Oh, the chain? You would. You would. You'd go goth in your 30s.
I'd have a chain wallet. I'd start shopping at Hot Topic.
Yeah.
That's the most goth.
My Chemical Lenny.
It's so funny that like the most goth thing in my head is still just Hot Topic.
Yeah. That store's still there.
Yes. Yeah, you can't put those white kids down that easy, dude. They still got their parents still have money.
Oh god.
So yeah, you tried thinking you were gonna get one over on me. So you did all of this. And I thought,
you know what's funny is like, yeah, sure, I tried, right? But like I also knew there wasn't really a chance in hell I was gonna slide it by you. Because I also parked directly next to you.
But
so I knew you were there.
No, I knew you knew I was there. But this is how I knew that you were trying to get one over on me, because when I came out, I was like, am I going to see, like, I was like, okay, maybe he's waiting outside. Maybe he's waiting in his car still, but you were neither. You were just not there. And that's what I knew. You thought you were trying to sneak one over. I'm like, this guy thinks that he's going to get one over on me by getting out of here before I can get to my car. That's crazy.
So the thing is, like, I did walk into the movie like 5 minutes late, so it was pitch black in there. I could barely find my seat. So I had no idea you were sitting right next to me pretty much. Because you had told me, like, when you go to Braintree, you've started sitting more in the middle.
No,
so
I said I thought about it. I've never done it.
Okay. In my head, I was like, oh, the son of a bitch finally did it.
And I didn't know you had bought that ticket because you knew I was going.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I definitely
I really didn't know until I saw your truck.
I told you when we saw If, I had said, yeah, there's actually a screen unseen next week. I think I'm going to go to it.
Okay.
You just don't listen when I speak. But
no.
Yeah, you walked in a little late. I will say, dude, when you drink your drink, it looks like you're sucking a dick.
I challenge you to tell me, what is the masculine way to drink through a straw?
Not lean down to your drink.
So the thing is, when I put on the lid, it was broken.
Right.
And I already knew I was late for the movie, so I didn't want to go back. And the first sip I went to take, I spilled it all over myself. So I then did not want to take it out of the cup holder.
I just looked over at one point and you're like leaned over in your drink. And I was like, pause, brother.
Hey, bro. Fish flag. Nobody was supposed to have seen that.
I'm always watching, man.
You're you're the old lady from Monsters, Inc.
Yeah. Yep. I see it all, dude. Oh, okay. So, what was the Ezra? So we saw our movie Ezra. It's about a guy who goes on vacation to Hawaii and torments a bunch of women in a bar, throwing tables and freaking out on them.
I fell for that for a minute. I was like, wait. I thought we saw the same movie.
Yeah, it was an Ezra Miller biopic, wasn't it? No,
Uh,
in all seriousness, we did see a movie called Ezra. It's not about Ezra Miller. I know that that's most people's first assumption when you hear the name Ezra is that it's got to be about him. It's not. He doesn't sell in the box office. Just go look at the Flash. Um, so it's about
yeah, that's why the Flash didn't sell.
um, it's about a father who is a comedian who is raising with his semi-divorce because he said he never signed the
They're
papers.
they're going through a separation.
Yeah, an autistic child. Uh,
Yeah.
my favorite thing about screen unscenes at this point, my favorite part of going to them, the mystery is great, but it's really just the people who it's still a mystery to because they don't find out what we're seeing before they go, and then watching the people who get up and leave. It's my favorite part of going to screen unscenes.
Yeah.
So before you got there, there was only one guy who left. He was like 60, very overweight, and could barely move with a cane. And he couldn't have gotten out of there faster. All of a sudden, that motherfucker could have ran the Boston Marathon. Like he's like, this is not the movie for me.
Nope, nope,
Uh,
nope,
yeah,
nope, nope.
you're trying to get me to like autistics? No.
I think he used the hard R.
Yeah, yeah. Artistics.
Yeah, sure, that's what it is.
Um, so he leaves. We get another 20 minutes into the movie. And then it was like, it's the funnier ones actually, when people get like try to watch it. And it's like there's a group of people who don't want to be there, but they're waiting for like one other person to break the awkwardness of leaving. And you just see like the first couple get up and go to leave. And then all of a sudden another person gets up behind them. And then another person on the other side of the theater gets up. And I know that they're all leaving because they all have their drinks and their popcorn with them. I'm like, all right, we lost another 5.
Oh man.
And of all the movies, like I get it. Like the origin one was the one that made the most sense to me, right? Like whether I agree or disagree, it's like that one's pretty like
It's a heavy movie, and if you're not in the
yeah,
mind state for it, yeah.
yeah. And I think there's a lot of lines that like the heaviness. I think for a lot of people is going to be it. There are going to be people whether it's like right, wrong, or other like that. Just the messaging. They're like, I don't need you to like. It's not even political, but like I think in a lot of people's minds it is like I don't think you need to tell me how I should think or feel or like whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
this movie doesn't really like have that message to me, and I definitely don't think you got that message. Like they weren't trying to like feed you some narrative really in this movie, so it is a weird one. Other like so it's got to be just that like hey like this movie's not for me, you know, like it's not
Yeah.
funny to me. The message isn't hitting for me, whatever it is, you know. One reason or another, though, like, yeah, people just leave and it's funny to watch. But like, I thought another movie to where like this was intended to be a comedy. But I don't know that like it wasn't like hysterically funny, but I thought
I
there was
think it
some
got some
parts.
decent chuckles out of me though.
Yeah, I
Like,
thought that there was like that kid was funny. Like
yeah,
he was funny during it, and like him and the dad. I think especially as the movie progresses, because like so we as people know if you watch this weekly, generally when we get to taste tests, like it's spoiler free. Like well, it's spoilers. I'm not saying spoiler free. Like we're free to just let spoilers fly. Is actually so. If you were going to see the movie Ezra, like time codes down below, you can skip this. But so and they think they show you this on the trailer anyways. But basically like the kid is acting out in school. He's in a regular public school because his dad wants him to experience normal life and not be treated like he's special or different. He just wants him to feel like a normal kid. And the very beginning of the movie, he quotes Breaking Bad and he leads all of his class of 20 kids to run out onto the main road. And the school is like, we can't handle him anymore. We're going to be kicking him out. Uh, and the dad doesn't want this. They're trying to recommend him to go to a special school and put him on medication and all this stuff. And his dad's like really, really against it. Doesn't want any of it to happen. And at one point, stuff happens and it leads the kid to run out of his house and he almost gets hit by a car. And they think that he could be a danger to himself. So the dad goes to the hospital and he gets into like a physical altercation with the doctor. And they
yeah,
essentially blame the dad for the way that the kid acts, even though the dad like is nothing but clearly like caring for him. And some of the situation is kind of manipulated by the mother, who is played by Rose Byrne, uh,
Yeah.
in a way, by not giving like all of the information on some stuff. And like because she wants the kid to go to this special school. She wants the kid to try the medication because he does live with her. She sees it more hands on, and like it's a lot to handle. I can respect that. But yeah, it gets into a physical altercation. It leads to there being a restraining order, and he has to stay away from his kid for a month. And that they're going to
It
send
was
him
for
to the school.
3 months.
But I think that they said they could get it knocked down to a month. I guess is why I said
That's what the
the lawyer.
mother's lawyer boyfriend was saying, but like obviously he wasn't listening to that.
Yeah. But so it leads to him basically kidnapping his own kid, and they have like a road trip across the country. And
Yeah.
I think what you learn throughout the movie is that like the dad, they like reference that he could also be somewhere on the spectrum, as well as his grandfather, who was played by Robert De Niro. Like all three
Yeah.
of them could in some way, shape, or form be on the spectrum, for one reason or another. But I didn't really get the vibe from the dad. The dad, so I think, was more of like a circumstance where like he had trauma from when he was a kid.
He had trauma and he had anger problems,
Yeah,
but I don't think it was necessarily like autism.
and I think
And
that
then
I think that anger is from trauma from his child.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
which the father had projected onto him.
yeah, yeah. So I think it was more like the dad, the two, the grandfather and the father more so just had like emotional shit. It wasn't truly like on the spectrum, but they all had their own stuff to deal with, and I think you just see like the. I think the father grows more than the son, but the son does see a lot of growth too, like throughout the movie. And
They both grow a lot.
yeah, and I always like these kind of like road trip esque movies like this. And like,
Yeah.
I thought that, like, to your point, yeah, I found it was funny, it was witty, it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily laugh out loud, but it was clever and like well written, and I really enjoyed it. Like as far as screen unscenes go, this is the
This is
best
the first
one.
good one I've seen in a while.
Yeah, this is the best one since Origin for me, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I thought as far as like movies that like the messaging lands and stuff like that, like, and even like the getting Rose Byrne and Robert De Niro's character to have to go out on their own, I think it allowed like all of these characters to kind of grow throughout the movie, because like nobody's hands were clean in this. Like everybody's bears some kind of responsibility on like why it got to this point, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's funny that people leave. But I thought, if for anybody who stuck around, you ended up getting like a pretty solid movie out of it.
Yeah.
Did you have any other thoughts on it?
Um, I mean, overall, I like the movie. I think like it was a really good balance. Like we just talked about If and how it tried to balance like the sentimental shit of, with the comedy. And I think this definitely played a way better balance on that aspect of things. And I think you end up with a pretty satisfying story and some pretty good comedy. It wasn't like laugh out loud, like hold your gut laughing comedy, but like it definitely got a bunch of chuckles out of me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I hadn't ranked it yet. Have you ranked it?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did it come in?
So I know I gave it 3 stars, and I have put it just ahead of If.
Yeah. So I have it. So it's actually technically at 12 now for me, and um,
Same, because as you were talking about it, I realized I hadn't ranked it, so I was ranking it once we started talking about
okay.
it.
So yeah, I have Ezra now is going to fall in at 12, and I've bumped If down to 13.
Same.
Cool. Okay. Do you want me to do my other movie that I went to?
What else you got?
So I saw The Strangers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, it's a movie I'm somewhat torn on. So I have recently rewatched the original Strangers, which came out in 2008. Stars Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. And basically the whole premise of the movie is the first thing, and they show this before both movies, like there's X amount of acts of random violence in the United States. And this is based on a true story of one of them. And the original is about a couple who leaves like a wedding, and they're staying in a cabin, and they're kind of going through like marital issues, fighting. and people start showing up. Like a person shows up on their door at their door, and then like slowly they start tormenting them in their house, and there's no other reason given other than the fact that they were just home.
Mm.
And you never get another reason, no other motive, and it's just they get tormented and terrorized by these. And so the new version, The Strangers Chapter One, this is planned to be a three-part movie, or three movies, like kind of a stretch for them. And this negatives would be this movie is almost a beat for beat remake of the original. And coming from a person who has just recently watched the original version of it, it's tough because you just see so much of stuff that was done in the first one, and quite frankly, done better, I would say, in
Mm.
the original version. This is a movie that has an R rating that I don't think does enough with its R rating. Um, there's not,
So there's not like a lot of gore or anything.
yeah, and to a point, you can only do so much because it's not like there's a huge body count, right? It's two people in a cabin, um, and like just three people tormenting them from outside of their house, So there's not like this
Yeah.
huge body count. So you can only do so much from a brutality standpoint. But yeah, I just don't think it focused too much on about being on the jump scares and some of that more modern horror stuff. The other issue would be you literally just start the original in 2008 in the cabin, right? Like you're just in the cabin, no context, and this stuff starts happening. Whereas in this movie, they try to, like they do with a lot of these, like it's a gripe that I would have with like the Halloween movie reboot or remake, the Rob Zombies, where it's like I didn't need the hour of like giving me like the reasons to feel bad for Michael Myers, that he was like bullied and shit like that. Like
Yeah.
you start this movie with them traveling to a to go visit for a new job that she's going for, and it leads them to this small town, and I think it was Oregon. And it's like they stop to get food, and like everybody in the diner is kind of an asshole and giving them dirty looks and shit like that. And then they have car trouble, and even the people who work um at the mechanic shop, which is right across the street from the diner, like you're left with this idea that they could have, and the husband or the boyfriend even calls this out, like their car doesn't start when they go to get back into it. He's like, you did that. Like you did that so that I'd have to get my car fixed, you know?
Mm.
And it's like almost just this thing where like the premise of the movie is that these are random acts of violence, right? That like there is no pre-motive to why these things happen. And they're almost giving you motives as to why people would have done this, in that like there is, they don't like outsiders. You called us out for fucking saying we broke your car. Like just all these things, like where
Yeah.
it's just, it wasn't clicking between them being the outsiders in this town. And it kind of takes away a little bit from this premise of like just a random act because you were here. Like that's why we're doing this to you, you know? It diminishes a little bit of what the plot and the premise of the movie is supposed to be. So it takes away, I think, a lot of the sting as to what this movie can be, and also just the lack of original thinking, I think,
Yeah.
hurts it as well. Um, on the plus side, the girl who is like the lead, I think is really good. Like I thought she performed really well as kind of like your final girl, as they would call them in like slasher horror movies. I thought she did a really good job in it. Um, I wish that like there's just like some stupidity too, like as far as like a spoiler, right? So like there is, this is a scene that's not in the original at all, but it's in this. They're in the woods, and they're like kind of like able to get away from the people a little bit, and they're getting followed in the woods. And he has a gun, and he's able to sneak up on one of the strangers and
Yeah.
literally has him at gunpoint and does like this whole monologue, but never shoots them. Like could have killed them very easily. Like the whole time you're like watching, like this guy's a fucking idiot. And it's like the worst part of horror movies is like when characters are just outwardly stupid, right? Because
Yeah.
like there's still two more of them. So why aren't you just pulling the fucking trigger on this one? Like they've tormented you guys for hours for the whole night. They're going to kill you. How are you not just shooting this person? And like the reasons
Yeah.
why he's not doing it don't make enough sense. Um, and it's like one of those. It's definitely one of these movies where, I think I said this to you, like it's the ultimate like this would only happen to white people movie because there's just
Yeah.
so much shit that only white people would allow to like they would just keep making these decisions over and over again. You're like, dude, like what are we fucking doing? You're like,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it wasn't good enough. But the one thing I do like is so the movie from 2008 with Liv Tyler, it ends the same way as this movie does. They are in chairs. They get captured finally by the strangers, and they're in their living room, and they're in chairs, and um, they basically get stabbed in the stomach, and they bleed out. They're bleeding out on the floor. And at the end of the original movie, you have this moment where these kids that are handing out like Christian like messaging, like pamphlets, like
Okay.
like find Jesus things, show up at
Yeah.
their house like right after everything's happened in the morning, and they see the door open and they step inside, and the very last scene of the movie is like Liv Tyler like opening her eyes and like she's still
Mm.
alive. But they never like you never get a sequel, a true sequel that follows up on that. And in this one, much the same way, the only thing that's different in this one is that she's able to get a cell phone and call the police, but she's not able to give them an address or anything like that. But they're able to track like the where the
The
call
phone.
came from, right? So eventually, as they kill, like stab them and they leave them for dead and they're bleeding out on the floor, you hear the sirens approaching the house and the strangers get out of there just in time. And they find her, and like quite like the same way as the original, this leads to her like in a hospital bed. She's lived through the stabbing. And that's how you're going to be able to set up for a part two and kind of see where this goes. And like
Yeah.
to that point, like I'm interested to know how they tell this, right? Like, is she gonna go back to that town and just be like, I'm gonna fucking find the people who like attacked us, or like what is the next step of this story? So I think in that way it's intriguing enough. Uh and so the one other thing I have on this, so like I rated it like just to get this out of the way. Um I gave it 2.5 stars. And I have it at 19. So I have it in front of Ghostbusters, but I have it behind movies like Abigail and Which Brings Me to You. Um, so it's
Okay.
like wedged right in between those. The one interesting part of this, the movie only cost $8.5 million to make. So the question becomes at this point, with how many failures there are in the box office these days, I'm shocked that we're not getting more low budget horror movies because they're all at this point pretty successful because it's such a minimum amount that people have to get out to see it
Yeah.
that like you're able to do it. So Strangers Chapter 1 for 2024 now has the highest opening box office of horror movies at 11.8 million. Night Swim came in at 11.7. Abigail did 10.2. Imaginary did 9.9. First Omen 8.3, Tarot at 6.5, Immaculate did 5.3, and then Lisa Frankenstein only did 3.6 million.
Oh shit.
So that's the lowest of all of them, you know? Um, so I'm just surprised you don't get more. But as far as like this movie getting the second and the third one, I mean, it's pretty much showing it was a wise investment for the pure fact that it's probably at minimum going to double its budget in its theatrical release, right? Not that it's like a crazy amount of money, but
Yeah.
as long as you keep the budgets like this, I'd say this whole franchise, this whole 3 movie stretch is going to do pretty well. The only way that part two doesn't do well is like this isn't getting great reviews. I think it's the division of like the people who are seeing this for the first time are like, oh, it's okay. It's not bad, you know? But the people who have seen the original source material and liked it a lot don't really like this version of the movie for a lot of the reasons I said, you know?
Okay.
We'll see what happens though. I think like you're getting a release of the second one fairly soon because it's already finished. So I don't know if you're getting it before the end of the year is done or at the very beginning of 2025, but it's going to be like a bang bang release of these movies, which I think also lends in its favor too. And if you can drop 2 movies in a year and both of them exceed the budget, I think like its success kind of speaks for itself at this point. And I will say this, like the other thing with movies like this in the slasher horror movie genre, I talk about rewatchability a lot. While I didn't like, I don't think that this is the best movie ever. I'm gonna watch it again. Like I'm definitely gonna see it again. Not in the theater necessarily, but like whenever it inevitably comes to digital or to streaming, like I will watch
Yeah. Okay.
it. Do you have anything else?
Uh, the only other thing I watched was I watched Blood In Blood Out.
Just about.
The You don't know about it. It's like a 1993 gang movie.
Okay.
It basically starts with like this group of cousins. They're in a gang, Vatos Locos. They get into some shit and like one of them goes to prison, and basically the whole movie kind of focuses around this one character and how he like first he's looking for like validation with the gang, like he's really like liking the street life, then he gets arrested, and it's about like his acclimation to prison life, and then he gets parole and he gets out and he's trying to go straight, and it only lasts for like a few days, and he ends up getting into some shit and going back to prison, and now he's trying to run the prison.
Okay.
uh it's a long movie. It's fucking 3 hours and 10 minutes, but I've seen it before, but I remember really enjoying it, so I went back and watched it again when I noticed it was on Hulu.
When did it come out again?
93.
Okay, damn. Is it any notable actors in it?
The only one I think is Benjamin Bratt.
Why do I remember that is? What else is he from?
Uh,
Okay.
he was in
Yeah,
like one of
yeah,
those
yeah.
like cop shows,
Yeah,
right?
he's in Miscongeniality.
Huh. Law and Order. That's where I remember him.
Doctor Strange, he's in.
Yeah.
Ride Along 2.
Graphic.
Snitch. But yeah, probably
Yeah,
most
he's in a lot.
notable Law and Order.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'd say he's probably like the only notable actor for. Oh, well, Danny Trejo was in it too,
He's in everything.
and yeah, especially it's a Mexican movie, so he's got to be in there and do his thing. And Ving Rhames also has a role in there.
Like me some Ving.
Uh, but no, really good movie. I enjoy it a lot, even second time around.
What streaming service is it on? Is it on any?
Hulu.
Hulu? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm trying. I was trying to. I told you I have my watch list, and I'm trying to step away from paying for all these rentals. So, trying to stick to what's available on streaming for now because I do pay for those, so I might as well use them.
For sure. I get that. The only other thing I watched that's notable, so I've been watching The Challenge again. That's neither here nor there. But not much to talk about there. I'm just watching like the championship, like the world championships of The Challenge, which is a season that came out a couple years ago. Been fine so
Yeah.
far. I've only watched like an episode and a half. But the only other movie I watched is Shia LaBeouf's Eagle Eye, which I
Are you
purchased.
going to say
for,
holes?
No, I purchased Eagle Eye for $5 on Vudu and gave it a watch, and still enjoyable. It's just an easy, popcorn blockbuster movie. From the peak of Shia LaBeouf, like that mid 2000s to early 2010s run, before
Yeah.
he became crazy and kind of a bad person. Apparently, he made his first appearance on the red carpet again this week. And I
Oh,
don't know if
really?
you know the backstory for like how shitty of a person he is.
I don't.
So he beat up a female, reportedly or allegedly, and left her. I think her name's like FKA Twigs or something like that is her name. And left her with like emotional trauma and all this shit. Like he like changed her life like in a very negative way. And then he also had sex with a girl and gave her an incurable STD. So like all around kind of a bad guy, and like he's been kind of canceled from the Hollywood circle. So it's kind of crazy to see him make like his return to the red carpet. And I don't know if he's trying to like do a slow rollout. You're also seeing people like Kevin Spacey's starting to get talked about in public again now. And it's kind of weird coming off of like the Diddy stuff and all of this to like see some of these guys that are like notably bad dudes trying to like dip their toe back into the public eye and see, uh,
They're coming back like, yeah, we're not as bad as that guy.
yeah, like you are, like you are just as bad as that dude. Like the
Yeah.
things that Shia LaBeouf has reportedly done, not like, I mean, like, did he beat the shit out of a girl in a hotel,
Yeah.
like Shia LaBeouf beat the shit out of a chick too. Like they're both deplorable human beings. Diddy obviously with like the sex trafficking things and stuff like that, like that's a different story. Um,
Yeah.
but like still like giving somebody a fucking STD and all this, like I don't know, it's kind of crazy. And it sucks
Yeah.
because like, truthfully, that run that I'm talking about, like the Transformers run, the Eagle Eye run, you talk about holes, like Shia LaBeouf was pretty prominent from a person that like was my age and I'm watching him on TV growing up to then being in these huge blockbuster movies that I loved going to. And I kind of like went out of my way to see movies in this time period that like Shia LaBeouf was in. And then he started doing more of like the artsy stuff, or like more like thought provoking things. And I fell off a bit with it, but I've always kind of liked him as an actor. So it is like, it sucks, but like, you have to separate the work from the person a little bit. But yeah, I don't really want to see him make a comeback in Hollywood. Like that's not like, people like that should stay where they are,
Yeah.
One other thing, the guy who directed, The Strangers, also directed the movie Driven, starring Sylvester Stallone. I just want to throw that out.
Okay.
So we can end on a positive note.
Thanks for that one.
Because we've talked about that recently,
Yeah.
So you got nothing else, right?
No.
I also have nothing else. So with that being said, everybody, thank you for stopping by. Once again, if you'd like to see us get a sponsorship deal from Buc-ee's, we are going to need you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend, ask a friend. Sharing is caring about this podcast. We would appreciate that greatly. You can find us anywhere audio podcasts are provided, as well as on YouTube.
Yeah, I love that. There's some weeks where you forget to say like, comment, share, subscribe.
I know.
This week, you said it 4 times.
I'm putting some in the bank. Putting some in the bank, baby. Yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe. And until next week, we love you. Peace out. Bang. Bang.
Ski ski.
For those with good taste.